Baseball has their most wins in 4 years, and they're starting to win midseason awards now. Hello, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Wait, Dana's not this handsome. I'm Tyler Small, and you're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. Dana Pecora is not here with us today. She has left the program. Only kidding, she'll be back next week. But men's golf hosted the Explorer Invite, and we were there to catch you up on everything blue and gold.
And later, our senior correspondents Amadou C. and Selena B-Mac make their final appearances in this week on the Sidelines and Explorers Report.
But first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Number 1, 2 lacrosse players were honored with A10 recognitions. Sophomore Bridget Ruskey was named to the second team All-Conference as a midfielder. Ruskey, team leading 33 goals and 13 assists, placed her in the top 20 in points among A10 players, and 54 draw controls earned her top 10. Freshman Amanda Farnsworth was listed on the A10 All-Rookie team for her resiliency. Farnsworth played only 11 games due to multiple concussions throughout the season. She did make her way to the starting 5 of the last 7 games, recording 7 ground balls and forcing 2 turnovers.
Number 2, despite a tough season on the green, 4 golfers have proven their prowess in the classroom. Juniors Maribel Declan, Rebecca Smith, and Mary Ide, along with sophomore Gina Lizzo, were named to the MAAC All-Academic Team. The 4 Explorers were among 35 golfers from all around the MAAC to be named to the team. To be eligible for the team, athletes must attend a school for at least 2 semesters and have a minimum GPA of 3.2. Declan, Smith, and Ide have all earned the award twice, while Lizzo has earned it for the first time. LaSalle had the 3rd highest number of golfers named to the team after Dayton and Niagara, who each had 5, while Quinnipiac had 5. All right, we each had 6, while Quinnipiac had 5. Sorry.
And number 3, baseball senior relief pitcher Connor Hinchliff, named by the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association Stopper of the Year Midseason Watch List. Hinchliff was earlier recognized by Golden Spikes Award Midseason Watch List. He currently leads the A10 with 10 saves for the season, as well as puts him in the top 10 in the nation in saves. Hinchliff also leads the Explorers with an ERA under 2.5 and opposing batting average well below 200. He compiled 34 strikeouts in his 26 2/3 innings of work in relief.
Yeah, so I think first we should touch on Connor. It's pretty impressive on a team that isn't the greatest team. They're not awful, but he's got 10 saves on a team that has barely double-digit wins. So he's obviously contributing quite a bit to that team late on in games.
And he's the only steady force in this pitching rotation if you really look at it. There's been very solemn pitchers that have gone past the 5-inning mark to make it a quality start.
Right.
So Hinchliff being able to hammer it down for multiple 6-out saves or 2-inning saves has been huge for this team.
Yeah, and I think another thing to touch on is women's golf. The team only has 7 players on it, and 4 of them made the all-academic team in conference. That's quite a feat.
Yeah.
The student-athlete thing we stress here pretty frequently. It's amazing to see our student-athletes be such good students in the classroom, even though they may not have had the greatest season in their sport.
Yeah, it's just a testament to their work ethic. To put it in on and off the field, especially in a sport like golf where you need so much practice, so much repetition to be successful at it, and to have time for the classroom as well is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that does it for our headlines this week. Let's take a look at how the Explorers fared these last 2 weeks. Baseball lost 2 out of 3 against Big 5 rival St. Joe's, but bounced back and dominated St. Peter's 24-7. Freshman Chuck Kelly was on the mound for the Explorers and picked up his first win of the season. Kelly pitched over 5 innings and gave up 4 runs to keep his team in the game. On the offensive side, 7 different Explorers had multi-hit games. Levins, Faso, and Sorrells each came through with 4 hits. The last time the baseball team put up 20 or more runs in a game was back in 2015 when they scored 20 against Delaware State. After coming off a big win, the Explorers fell to Bucknell 9-7. Bullpen pitching was the Achilles heel as they surrendered 5 runs in the 8th. Once again, Sorrells had a big game at the plate, going 4 for 5 to extend his hitting streak to 7 games.
Softball dropped 3 straight series over the last week, starting with a 3-game series with Dayton. In Game 1, the Flyers got out to an early lead and didn't look back. In the final inning of the game, LaSalle would try to rally, scoring 4 runs, but couldn't complete the comeback, losing 9-6. Game 2 was more of the same as the Blue and Gold lost 14-8. They would finally bounce back in Game 3, winning a close one 8-7. The Explorers would then move down to George Mason for a 3-game series. All 3 games were low-scoring affairs, both teams combining for 5 runs over the 3 games. LaSalle were blanked in Game 1 and 3, but they would come out in Game 2 as Kaylee Joyce's home run as she threw a complete game. Finally, the Explorers would return home for a doubleheader with St. Joe's. LaSalle was trashed in Game 1 as they lost 8-2. The second game was much closer, but the Hawks would still come up on top with a 3-2 win.
La Crosse hosted UMass for their final home game of the season. Despite hat tricks from the trio of Allison Hunter, Bridget Ruskey, and Mickey Raymond, and 16 saves from Molly Laughlin in the net, the Explorers ultimately fell 14-13. LaSalle then hit the road for their final 2 games. First, against St. Joe's, the Hawks dominated, outshooting the Explorers 48-22. Haylor Sable led the Hawks with 5 goals in the 19-7 rout of LaSalle. Last up, the Explorers traveled down the PA Turnpike to face Duquesne. The game got out of hand early as the Dukes grabbed a 13-14 lead at halftime. LaSalle would rebound, but it wouldn't be enough as they fell 19-11, ending the season on a 4-game losing streak.
Men's track attended the George Mason Spring Invitational, where Dennis Mania wore the high jump with a leap over 2 meters. He beat out 10 other opponents to win the gold. Freshman Chris Lewis picked up 7th place in the 100-meter dash. That same weekend, sophomore Ryan James competed at the Bison Outdoor Classic, where he ran a 3rd place in the 1,500-meter run. The past weekend, the Explorers competed in the Larry Ellis Invitational at Princeton. Mania finished as runners leaping 2.05 meters. Lewis placed 6th, running a time just under 11 seconds in the 100-meter dash. Meanwhile, freshman Bison Pitchery and Sean Grant represented the Explorers at the Widener Invitational. They competed in the 800-meter and placed 26th and 27th.
The women's track team traveled to Fairfax, Virginia to compete in the Mason Spring Invitational and the Bison Outdoor Classic. Some standouts at Mason included Ariel Mitchell placing 2nd in the 100-meter dash, as well as Jessica Bryant's 2nd-place finish in the long jump. In her 800-meter run, Michaela Eberly set a new personal record of 2 minutes and 13 seconds. At Bucknell, Grace Mancini finished 3rd in the 5,000-meter. A solid weekend overall for the women's track team. The team then traveled to the Larry Ellis Invitational. A huge accomplishment came for freshman Shelby Kishel, who set another school record after previously breaking it last week at George Mason for the javelin toss. She threw just under 40 meters and finished 6th out of 18 competitors.
We had some of our SportsLine crew out watching the Explorers Invitation over the weekend. Let's take a look.
The LaSalle University men's golf team hosted the annual Explorer Invitational Monday, April 15th at Lulu Country Club against 7 other teams. Those other teams included the likes of Drexel, Villanova, and Temple University. Here's Scott Yerglovich on hosting the event.
And it's a great event. We've had it at a lot of great golf courses. This year it's at Lulu Country Club. Previous years we've had it at White Marsh, Stonewall. I mean, pretty much the best courses in the area that you can find. The conditions today were absolutely brutal. A freshman that we have, Matt Werner, the kid just grinds out every round he has. I mean, in the last 4 rounds, I don't think he shot anything over like 74. It's just, this kid works really hard. I think he shot, a couple over par today. It's, he was playing as our 5 guy, but, turns out again, he ends up as our number 1 guy. So, and we ended up falling to, Drexel and Temple and Villanova.
Your champion at a total of 592 is my alma mater and the Villanova Wildcats. Congrats, guys. Well done, guys. Well done.
but those aren't bad teams. So we're it's always nice to play good teams, and that's how we judge ourselves against the competition. So
Freshman Matthew Werner led the team as the lowest individual scorer at 148 overall, shooting 76 in the first round and 72 in the second, or 6 over par. This landed him in a 3-way tie for 6th place individual. And now, a word from Werner.
Coach Scott came out on one hole and he told me that every shot mattered, and I just kind of kept remembering that. Like, every shot I hit today, just focused on and just made sure that you can't give up any loose strokes, because they all count at the end of the day.
For SportsLine, I'm Josh Warner.
The men's golf team then hit the road for the Navy Spring Invitational. With a rough start to the tournament, the Explorers finished the par 71 course in 14th place on day 1. Freshman Parker Wine topped LaSalle's scorecard with an 8 over par finish. The Explorers made a 23-stroke improvement in round 2 of the tournament to finish out the Invitational in 12th place overall. Once again, Wine led the blue and gold, finishing the tournament tied for 18th individually after finishing 8 over par. Wine shot an even par in round 2, which was the best single-round score for the entire tournament.
It was a very good Friday for the men's and women's rowing teams, as they earned a pair of wins over Iona from the varsity 8 teams. The men's varsity 8 and second varsity 8 finished the fastest in the 2,000-meter race, with a time of 6 minutes and 35 seconds and 6 minutes and 44 seconds, respectively. The women's 8+ crew crossed the finish line in front of Iona by just 7 seconds. Then, for the second straight day, the Explorers were in the Schuylkill as they took part in the Kerr Cup Regatta, with 2 women's varsity 8 boats earning places in the top spot. The women's varsity 8 and second varsity 8 finished third in their heats, but finished in last place in the finals. The men's third varsity 8 finished in last place for the Explorers.
Both the men's and women's tennis teams had a busy 2 weeks of action as the A-10 playoffs began. The women's team lost their last 5 matches before entering the A-10 championship. They faced the 3-seeded UMass team that defeated the Explorers 4-0. Brittany Pogé battled in her singles match but fell in the 3rd game. The men's team lost to the same 4 teams that the women's did, but it was much closer affairs. This included a 3-4 loss against George Mason. After losing the doubles matches 2-1, freshman Nassim Fenhiro won with ease in straight sets. Francesco Mori and Fenhiro also ended on top when a crucial match fell through the fingers of Colin Lucius. After winning the first game 7-5, the game would be put on weather delay and moved indoors. The second set would be a loss 7-6, and finally, a wild third round would result in a 10-8 loss for the Explorers.
The women's water polo team had a solid final weekend before the MAAC championships, topping Big 5 rival Villanova in the first matchup 15-13. The Explorers finished strong in a thrilling game. The Wildcats scored twice in the 4th to take their only lead of the game before junior Stephanie Morales managed to tie it up, sending the game to overtime. Here, the Explorers were able to come away with the win. The blue and gold didn't fare nearly as well in their second matchup against Wagner, however. After trailing 9-1 after the first quarter, the Explorers were never able to recover, falling 27-6. Their last regular season game saw the Explorers once again burn Siena. Junior Jenny Fairmate had a fantastic game in net, with a save percentage of over 42%, leading the Explorers to a 14-12 win.
That's all we have for recaps this week, but don't touch that remote as we will be right back when we sit down with the captain from the rowing team.
Tell me you didn't watch the Phillies game last night.
You know, unfortunately I did, and it was just so heartbreaking to see the first 8 batters strike out.
Claude Giroux hasn't done anything for this organization.
I'm confused. You're doing an internship in sort of marketing and production, right?
I really can't believe that Ben Simmons won't be dropping 3s on the court this year.
Hey, Tanya, I know you're really busy, but could you tell me who the Sixers play on October 28th? Doctor, in order for the Eagles to win this week, they're going to need 250 passing yards from Carson Wentz. We're going to need 100 yards rushing. I don't care who it is. We're going to need a lot of good production from our tight end and wide receivers, and I'm going to need 5 interceptions from Malcolm Jenkins. Yeah, Mom, look, I know the money situation isn't good right now, but I promise you Travis Konechny's going to have a breakout year.
Hey, I had to climb to the top of Mount Everest to find Nick Pavetta's ERA.
Sports Talk Philadelphia. We talk nothing but sports all the time.
Welcome back. Amadou C got the opportunity to sit down with rowing captain Scott Dunn earlier today. Take a look.
Welcome to On the Sideline. I'm your host, Amadou C, here with Scott Dunn. So tell me, Scott Dunn, so you're the captain of the row team here at LaSalle, correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
So what does that mean for you?
I think it's an important title for me to have, especially as one of the few seniors on the team. It puts me in a position of leadership to show all my younger teammates how to conduct themselves in practice, what kind of intensity and focus and attitude we want on and off the river.
Right.
Show them how they should conduct themselves in class, how to properly prepare themselves for tests and races, and balancing all the athlete component and the student component.
Okay, so how did you start rowing?
I started rowing in my freshman year of high school. I tried out for the basketball team. I got cut, and I just needed another sport to do. So the rowing team was taking, anyone. The rowing team was very open, and I just signed up, and here we are 8 years later.
So what would you say is the most competitive thing about rowing? Like, what is it? Fighting the water, or say if you're going up against other rowers? Like, what's the most competitive aspect to it?
That's a good question, Amadou. I'd say the most competitive aspect is just every day you're just fighting for your spot in the boat to keep it safe.
Wow.
And then on race day, you got all these other boats, people you don't know lined up next to you, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to mess these guys up, and then you just start pushing yourself more and more so you can actually beat these bigger, better guys.
So I gotta ask, because I'm curious, is there some sort of rivalry or beef you have with like kayakers or whitewater raptors or whatever else that what's the dynamic here?
We don't pay too much mind to them. They're more of a recreational activity during the summer while we're actually a competitive sport.
That is a burn. Wow. So you guys are competitive. So tell me, do you compete against just Philadelphia area, or is it against other teams across the nation, other teams across the world? How does it work?
We usually compete against local schools. Philly schools are our biggest rivals, but we face teams from Boston, DC, down in Florida. We faced a couple of crews from California. So it just depends on what kind of event we're rowing in. If it's a big event, they tend to have a more widespread range of crews.
So you being a senior, this is your last year, obviously. Do people look up to you since you've been here so long and you've been fighting for your spot, as you said earlier? I'm
going to assume they do, and I like to conduct myself in such a way that, even if they aren't, they are. I feel like conduct myself as if they are, and just try to provide a good example for them.
So when you talk to people about rowing, what's something that people misunderstand the most?
People think it's very upper body oriented. It's all your legs. So
it's all legs, like
yes.
Right here?
Oh, yeah, wow. I actually have zero upper body strength. People always ask me, oh, I bet your upper body's so strong. No, I have zero upper body. All my strength is down in my legs.
So how does that work? So when you do a rowing technique, obviously you have the, what do you call them? The oars, right? Yeah. And so you push that way. How is there no upper body strength?
So when you, in the boat, there's seats that move. And as the boat's moving that way, you're going up that way. So you're compressing your legs as you come up. And when you put your oar in, you press your legs down as hard as you can. This is more of a follow-through motion, kind of like in basketball when you follow through. It's a similar idea.
Wow. So you mentioned that you played basketball back when you were in high school, but then you got cut from the team. Apart from rowing, is there any other similarity? Apart from basketball, is there any other similarities that rowing has to other sports?
It's I guess different from what people think. It's actually very, very team oriented.
Right.
In order to move a boat as efficiently as possible, you need all 8 or all 4 or both guys or whatever, how many ever people are in the boat. All 8 of them need to be doing the same exact thing at the same exact time, which it's not
Synchronized sports, yeah.
it's not easy. And kind of like in basketball, you can like sub guys in and out.
Exactly.
In rowing, you don't get those breaks. And I guess like in basketball, like LeBron James could single-handedly change a team.
Mm-hmm.
In rowing, one guy is not going to make a huge difference. It's about how the collective chemistry of the boat flows together.
That's really amazing. So I got to ask, because I'm a funny guy, who's the funniest guy on your team?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if he's the funniest, but the most entertaining is a toss-up between Chris Perry and Kevin Tryon. Those two guys always just have something up their sleeve. They're always scheming, always up to no good.
So obviously you look forward to the regatta. What's the most fun and most challenging thing about the regatta for you?
I would say right after the start, you're about a minute into the race, and all like the pre-race jitters and adrenaline kind of wears off, and then you start to realize, oh, this is for real. We're actually going now, and you start getting more and more tired, especially at this point, and when you realize how long it is, it's really just about how tough you can stay, not only physically but mentally.
Right. Well, thank you for that lesson in rowing and teaching me a thing or two about it. So I definitely got to get out there and try it. So that's all we have for today. Back to you in the studio. When we come back, former producer Selena BMAC will be emerging from the bowels of the history department and return to the SportsLine desk to bring us this week's Explorers Report. Stay tuned.
Kylie lost to an egg.
An egg?
An egg.
How does a general lose to an egg?
The internet to an egg.
You know, there is a show for that. It's called Backstage Pass.
You seen the new library plan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in the library.
Oh. In the library?
Yeah.
New library.
You know, there is a show for that called LTV News, where the action never stops.
I wonder how the basketball team is.
You know, there is a show for that called SportsLine.
So are you a Carson Wentz or Nick Foles guy?
More of a Nate Sudfeld team.
Oh, really? Interesting. Wonder where we can hear about Philly sports.
You know, there's a show for that called Sports Talk Philadelphia.
You like Family Feud?
Yeah.
You like all shows like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if LaSalle has a show like that. That'd be kind of cool.
There is a show for that called Q&A.
I really wish that we could just display our talents.
Yeah, me too.
There is a show for that called Explorers Got Talent.
All this and more on LaSalle TV.
There's plenty of LaSalle sports action this upcoming week, so let us welcome Selena BMAC for this week's Explorers Report.
Thanks, Tyler. This weekend, the baseball team will be hosting UMass at home for a 3-game series. The Explorers have proven to be inconsistent as of late, going 7-7 in the month of April. Meanwhile, the Minutemen went 9-4 in the last month, and most recently won 2 out of 3 against Maine. UMass sophomore Anthony Vedetto has been one to watch for the Minutemen. Vedetto batted .429 last week and was 3 for 4 in a doubleheader against Maine, where he also had 5 RBIs and hit a game-winning single. LaSalle has had some recent success at the plate, too. Freshman Tatum Levens is the reigning A-10 Rookie of the Week for his performances last week. Levens batted .412 and had 7 RBIs in LaSalle's 4 games last week. He currently leads the team in home runs with 8 and in slugging percentage with a .531 average while scoring 25 runs on the season. The Explorers will need Levens to be a factor this weekend while staying in control on the mound. Consistency has been an issue for the Explorers, and much of that has come from their starting pitchers. LaSalle starters surrendered 11 runs to St. Joe's last weekend. The Explorers will need their starters to stay in control to come away with the series against UMass.
Thank you, Selena. Yeah, like you said there, this is going to be an offensive battle, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
You touched on how poor our starting pitching has been, but UMass's has not been very good either. They've been, I think you mentioned earlier that their lowest ERA on their team is a 3.5 ERA, which is an average ERA, but it's not what you want from your best pitcher. So what do you think we're going to see in the series, scoring-wise, pitching-wise? What are you expecting?
Obviously, consistency with the Explorers pitching has not been great, And like I mentioned, Anthony Vedetto is a player to watch, batting .429 and 5 RBIs in 1 week is insane.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a battle, I think, of the bats versus the mound. I think they're probably going to expect to see a lot of runs given up. But that being said, LaSalle has a much better record at home, and UMass is a visiting team, and they don't do so well on the road. I think they're 7-14 and away, so I think LaSalle's home field advantage will definitely help them edge out this one.
And to go back to your point that you were saying about the pitching, I think preferably LaSalle wants to be in an offensive battle here.
Yeah.
We have a really great group right now. You have a lot of guys. You look at Tatum Levins right now, has been an offensive leader, and as a freshman, has just really been a vocal leader so far.
And outside of him, you have guys like Ben Faso and Tommy Toll that we seem to talk about every week on the show, who really do carry the team offensively. They make up for that poor top-end pitching that we have. But when we have a lead going into the 9th inning, like we talked about earlier, we have Connor Hinchliff, who really has shut the door on teams all year long.
And another kid coming up just offensively, looking through the bottom of the order has been Jack Cuccinata.
Right.
Cuccinata earned his way on the starting lineup. We've seen it throughout the entire season, and he's going to be a big bat at the bottom of the order.
Yeah, so hopefully, like we said, there's going to be a lot of offense in this series, and hopefully that means that LaSalle can really hang with a team. Like you mentioned, they aren't a team that's going to hang around with an ace on the mound for their opponents. All right, so we have picks of the week, as we always do. Dana's not here this week to tell me that I go first, so I'm going to go first. I will take the UMass Minutemen 2-1 in the series.
I'm also going to take them. I'm going to take the Explorers 2-1. And the only reason I don't give them a sweep is just because it's so difficult to win a doubleheader in baseball. So I think that the Explorers will play great this week.
I'm staying faithful to LaSalle, 3-0 sweep across the board this weekend.
Wow. I mean, yeah, like you said, a sweep for either team at any point in a 3-game series, especially in college when you're playing doubleheaders, is super tough.
Yep.
Well, that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com or check out this week's edition of The Collegian.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Twitter, SportsLine LTV. We welcome you to send us your thoughts and or suggestions.
For Amadou, Selena, and our SportsLine team, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Tyler Small. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the game.